In the House of Commons, a motion was introduced by NDP leader Tom Mulcair to condemn Islamophobia. He was looking for unanimous consent. There had actually been a petition, an electronic petition that had been circulated by a Liberal MP, which had generated 70,000 signatures, and it didn't pass unanimously. There apparently were a number of Conservative MPs who shouted nay, and so it was not a unanimous vote. Sometimes they don't do a roll call for these votes. They just do it based on people shouting out their response, yay or nay. And Amira Elghawaby, who is Communications Director for the National Council of Canadian Muslims, writes in the Ottawa Citizen that this was a missed opportunity for the Conservatives to make amends for some of the policies that were introduced during last year's federal election campaign. And Amira Elghawaby joins us on Ottawa Today. Good morning.
Good morning, Mark.
So do we know how many Conservatives, do we know who they were? Do we know anything about this objection, I guess, this dissent against this motion?
No, actually, there have been repeated questions put to the Conservative Party to ask, why there were members who would say no to basically a motion that is really a symbolic gesture aimed at saying to Canadians that Islamophobia is a problem, unfortunately, in this country. There are more and more reports of people who are being targeted or discriminated against because of their religious faith. And this is just a symbolic gesture to show Canadians that parliamentarians take this seriously and, of course, condemn any acts of hate that seek to harm communities. So really unclear, what's there to say no to in such a motion.
And you point out in your column that Canadian Conservatives at times have fought against racism, particularly with regard to South Africa. John Diefenbaker and Brian Mulroney were both advocates for condemning and fighting against the apartheid regime in South Africa. Do you think the Conservative Party has lost its way on this, or is it just a small number of Conservative MPs that are reluctant to speak out against Islamophobia?
Well, I think there are too many questions that really remain unanswered here. We did see the last federal election where Islam and Muslims were constantly being spoken about in sort of negative terms by Stephen Harper and then others within the party. The Barbaric Cultural Practices Act made a lot of people angry in terms of its sort of racist overtones. So, coming out of that election, there were bridges to sort of repair between the Conservative Party and, Canadians of all backgrounds, but in particular Canadian Muslims. So, here you have an opportunity, sort of not just then to talk the talk, because we've actually heard from, various leadership hopefuls in the Conservative Party that, they're trying to help, lead the way for a party that is inclusive of all Canadians. So you talk the talk, but let's walk the walk. Why would it be that members of the party would therefore go and, this motion was supported by a petition that garnered the most number of petition signatures ever on an e-petition. Over 70,000 Canadians went and signed that petition to condemn Islamophobia, to condemn people sort of, looking at, the extremist violent actions that do occur and that we condemn, and saying you can't judge an entire, community based on the actions of a few. Therefore, you cannot, of course, condone any kind of hatred against, any member of the Muslim community in Canada because of, whatever anger or emotions that are coming out, of course, when we do see tragic instances around the world or here. So, again, we really do need to hear loudly and clearly from the Conservative Party of Canada that they remain committed to sort of correcting the wrongs of the past, the recent past, and restoring that tradition of standing up to racism, to standing up for all Canadians of all backgrounds.
Now, do we know for sure that it was only Conservatives that said nay to the motion?
That's right. That's exactly what has been reported and there's no indication that it was anyone else. What we had was the Liberal MP, Mr. Frank Baylis, is the one who actually put the petition out.
Right.
So his party supported it, and then the NDP leader Tom Mulcair, who actually put the motion forward. So this could have been, very important, sort of cross-party, supported by all parties to condemn hatred and racism. I mean, who would stand against condemning hate? I just, it's really unfathomable. And we received calls right away from, Canadian Muslims in different ridings here in Ottawa and elsewhere saying, what do I do? I want to talk to my MP. I want to know who happens to be Conservative. I want to know, did he or she say yes or no to this? And
Right.
I want to ask them and I want to tell them that, Islamophobia really impacts me on a daily basis when, people report when they walk out in the street. If a woman is wearing a headscarf, she may be treated poorly or yelled at even, or sometimes, unfortunately, even assaulted. We've seen that. We've seen vandalism at places of worship. We've seen so many things which unfortunately tend to overshadow all the positive that's out there. Because there's on the other side of the coin, Canadians overall are very inclusive people. They like and celebrate diversity and different traditions and different backgrounds. So it's unfortunate that we have to even talk about Islamophobia when overall Canadians, when, for example, a mosque was firebombed in Peterborough, the entire community, the local church, the local synagogue, everyone came together to support the congregation. So those are really the stories I wish we could focus more about. But here, the Conservatives, they really lost an important opportunity.
Amira Elghawaby, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thanks so much, Mark.
Amira Elghawaby is Communications Director for the National Council of Canadian Muslims.